Hey guys, Gary here with Automatic Door and Hardware, and today I thought I'd talk about a topic we get a lot. It's kind of a general question, and that is, how does a handicap door opener or low energy door operator actually work? And a lot of times people get these confused with door closers. They, sometimes use the term, automatic door closer, or you might hear automatic door opener. Essentially, a powered door opener works using, a DC motor, an electronic control board, and then the actual closing device arm, and generally some sort of actuation devices, whether that be touchless wave to open switches or push to open switches. So in this video, I'm just going to kind of explain essentially, how those work together as a system to automatically open or close your door. A little bit about myself is I'm a part of Automatic Door and Hardware. We are a commercial door and hardware manufacturer, and this includes automatic doors, specifically automatic sliding doors, low energy automatic swing doors, and even replacement automatic door parts for, the main brands like Stanley, Horton, BSAM, things of that nature. So to answer this question, essentially how it works, like a typical installation would be you would have a door with a low energy door opener on it, and on the interior side would be an activation button, and then on the exterior side would be an activation button. So how it would work is when the pedestrian pushes that activation button, essentially that's a switch, which is closing the contact, and that sends a signal. It's wired directly to the control board, and that signals the control board that they received an opening request, an activation signal, and then in turn the control board would then provide power to the DC motor, which would turn the gearbox or the gears within the gearbox and then open the door. So over the years, like in the past, there were door openers have really developed, even 20-30 years ago, most door openers were using cams and switches to essentially tell the door when it was approaching the full open position, or when the door was completely latch closed. So that was kind of the old way of, I guess, understanding the door position and where the door is at, because essentially the control board is essentially the brains of the whole operation, and it needs to know when to reduce power so the door will slow down, or when to increase power so the door will have more power to open, things like that. And it also need to know where the door is when it's in the full open position or the close and latch speed, so that the motor's not just constantly running. So that's more of the primitive design, and door openers that use the cam switches, they're actually still used to this day in a lot of door brands, actually, because although they are primitive, once they are adjusted, they are very reliable. But that also goes with being an experienced installer. Challenges we come across is when people do install these cam operated door openers, a lot of times they don't check all the boxes. So like make sure that the screws on the cams are tight, and there's been situations where the cams have fallen off, and we hear that the door isn't operating right. Well, because it doesn't know where, the control has no way of knowing that the door is fully closed or is in the full open position, because the cam screw came out and the cam fell off. The other downside of cam operated door openers is how it works is there's a micro switch with a little lever, and sometimes it's a roller lever, but essentially that's what's rubbing or rolling on the actual cam lobe. So with that, with micro switches, one of the things is, those can wear down, those micro switches, those sometimes have to be replaced. And then the other thing is just a lot of times people find it difficult to adjust because it is a process. You do have to test the door opener and allow it to adjust, check the cycle, adjust the cam, check the cycle, adjust the cam. So that's another downfall. But again, with that being said, it's not that those door openers aren't bad. It's just that it may take a little bit more time for somebody to install that product, especially if you're new to door openers. It might take you, an hour, up to an hour. Hopefully not, but it could. So that's kind of how door openers were all made back, 30 years ago or whatnot. And some of those designs, like I said, are still being used. It's not that they're bad at all, it's just that the manufacturer may have not have, ever progressed forward in the newer technology. So the next type of door opener I'm going to speak of, is the one that uses what we call an encoder, and that's generally used with a microprocessor control board. And so this is kind of this is the type of unit that we have, the Commander, and it's more of a state-of-the-art technology in the fact that it doesn't use cams. Instead, it requires there's a magnet at the end of the DC motor, which is an encoder, and there are sensors. There are sensors that you can essentially. There's a housing that goes over the magnet on the DC motor, and that housing has a essentially a sensor that can pick up the position of the magnet on the DC motor, and we call that sensor the encoder, and that is what allows it to determine where the door is at any given position, so that the controller knows, how much voltage to apply to that DC motor. And these are done through what we call pulses, and that's, encoders vary with the amount of pulses that they can read, and like with the Commander unit, ours is so dialed in that essentially when customers actually love our unit just because of the fact that it is self-learning. Essentially, you essentially plug it in and the door will do a learn cycle, read the weight of the door and everything, and adjust the door to the proper opening speed for that given door application, that given door weight and door size. So it makes it a lot smoother than the cam door opener, which can take a long time, especially if you're not familiar with it with adjusting. So, in a sense, our unit, the Commander door opener, is in that regards essentially dummy proof, because, you just plug it in, you don't have to worry about the cams kind of thing. You just need to adjust the speeds. So the latch is good, and then the back check is good too. So those are the two types of controllers that are used in an automatic door opener. So again, back to the process. Once the person activates that activation button, it sends a signal to the controller. And I'll just talk about the microprocessor, since that's what the Commander uses. It sends a signal to that control board with the microprocessor control unit. That registers as, okay, it's time to open the door. Someone wants to activate the door. It sends voltage to the DC motor, which then turns the gear, and then it turns the gearbox, and the spindle in the gearbox is connected to the door arm, which is what allows it to push the door open. So as it's pushing the door open, again, at the opposite end of the DC motor, and a DC motor, you have the gear which goes into the gearbox, and then on the opposite side of the gear shaft is where the magnet is in the encoder assembly. So as the door's opening, that magnet on the gear shaft is rotating, and the encoder is able to, every rotation, read pulses, and it knows how many pulses it takes to reach the full open position, and then on that initial learn cycle, and then it registers that, the microprocessor registers that as the fully open position. So based off of that number there, it's able to determine, what type of back check position it would need for that door application, or what type of latch position. when it's fully closed. Like the learn cycle is essentially measuring all that. So as the door is fully opening and then reaches the full open position from the pulses that it registers, it holds open for a certain amount of hold open time, and that's set by the installer with the hold open time. With the Commander door opener, it's fully adjustable, so you can change the hold open time to essentially 10 seconds to, or if you want 30 seconds or 60 seconds or anything like that, you could adjust the hold open time. Once that hold open time is incremented down and gets to 0, the door will then begin closing. So with the Commander, the closing process varies among other door openers. Since the Commander is a fire-rated door opener, it has an internal clock spring. So when the door is actually initially opening, it's actually winding that clock spring and putting it under tension. And then the DC motor is holding that door in the hold open position because voltage is applied to the DC motor. Once the hold open time is depleted, then the controller reduces the voltage on the motor completely, and what powers the door shut is simply the kinetic energy from the clock spring, and then so the door will close and then latch. So that's essentially the process of how a door opener works. Obviously there are other details that we can go into, but in the broad scope of things, that's essentially how a door opener operates. If you guys have any questions, please email me at sales@autodoorandhardware.com, or feel free to leave a comment below, and I'd be happy to go into more depth, especially with our Commander unit, and how it operates, and essentially how we stack up against a lot of these other door openers out there. But if you guys are in the market for a door opener, we highly recommend our Commander unit. Without getting too much more into it, it is truly a heavy-duty unit, and unlike other companies out there, if you go to our website, you'll quickly see that we do no automatic doors. And what I mean by that is, a lot of the door opener industry has really changed over the years. It's really has been geared towards the hardware side, which is good. But with that being said, door openers are electromechanical devices, so there is a lot more to door openers than just installing it as treating it as a simple unit like a door closer, for example. There's much more to these electric power door operators than is usually known by the installer themselves. So we'd be happy to explain more of this. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact us. I'll put a link to our Commander door unit below. Thanks, guys.